Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are meeting again for another interview with the Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, the former Prime Minister of Malaysia and arguably one of the most important names out of Southeast Asia and the Muslim world. So last session, we had a very lengthy discussion about certain aspects of Dr. Mahathir Mohamad's personal life, and he generously answered certain questions about his personal life, his personal views. In this session, we try to answer more questions about his views. Now, of course, I have to start with showing Dr. Mahathir my thesis about Dr. Mahathir himself, which is a work I'm very proud of. I spent 2 years collecting data on Dr. Mahathir, which basically consisted of the speeches given by Dr. Mahathir in English, the writings of Dr. Mahathir in English. And I can say that I know to quite a good degree what Dr. Mahathir thinks about issues, be it Islam, be it democracy, be it governance, be it the international order. However, I think a lot has happened since 2012 or 13, where I wrote the master's thesis. And Dr. Mahathir actually never fails to come up with new controversies, with new contributions, let's say, to the different debates that's there. So this session will actually be of great importance, as you will hopefully see during the interview. Dr. Mahathir, let's first of all start by congratulating you for turning 98 3 days ago.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you have a culture of celebrating birthdays in Malaysia?
Well, we do celebrate, but it is not actually a Malaysian custom. It is something that we learned from the British when we were under British rule.
So did you celebrate your birthday?
Well, I note, but not much of a celebration. I came to work as usual on my birthday.
Wow. Well, I was actually just like that. The only time my birthday was celebrated was in Britain. When I was working there, my friends, my British friends, came together and celebrated my birthday, which was kind of embarrassing actually, because I had never done such a thing in my life. So, but again, we are very glad that you are among us, and you came into this world, and inshallah you will stay for much longer with us. Let's start with the most recent developments. Last time I talked to you, I was in Turkey, and after I left, you came to Turkey, and I saw that you met President Erdogan. Could you please tell us what did you talk about with President Tayyip Erdogan in Turkey?
I went to see him because I wanted to congratulate him because he won in the election and is now again the president of Turkey. We talk generally about the world situation and also the good relation between Malaysia and Turkey. We think that a lot can be done about this relation becoming more based on economic activities like investment, like trading, etc. And of course, we touched a little bit on the current war between Ukraine and Russia.
Right. Well, one of the things that I've noticed is that you have quite a few common aspects with President Erdogan himself. You both have governed your countries over 20 years now, and of course winning elections. But you also have a common disgust towards IMF. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, the IMF is about regulating the banking system, but the regulation is mainly in order to ensure that countries pay their debts to the banks from which they owe money. It's not about helping the countries to regain economic development, etc. That was why during the financial crisis of 1997-98, we rejected IMF and the World Bank advice, and when we devised our own way of tackling the problem.
And what was that way, Dr. Mahathir?
Well, we fixed the exchange rate so that the currency traders cannot devalue our currency by selling our ringgit in the market. You know, when the ringgit is sold when the currency is sold in the market, the value goes down. It's a question of supply and demand. If the supply is very big, the value goes down. If there is a shortage of supply and greater demand, the value goes up. So they have been playing with forcing our ringgit to devalue. And when it is devalued, they buy the ringgit and deliver to the buyers who had bought earlier at a higher price, and they make a profit.
Well, I'm sure you know that. It's exactly the problem that Turkey is suffering right now. Did you have time to talk about that with Erdogan?
Yes, well, not in detail. I am aware that the Turkish lira has been depreciating very badly. But I think they are attending to that now. Well, we have some ideas, but we didn't discuss it.
So President Erdogan, up until the elections, had a very strong view against interest rate, which is called faiz. And suddenly after the elections, there is a change in the economic policy right now. There is a move towards hike in the interest rate. What do you think about interest rate, and what do you think about Erdogan's previous view that interest rate is the cause of inflation?
Well, when you increase the interest rate, you slow down the economy because people cannot have access to capital and they cannot invest or even carry on with their business. Our solution, as you know, is to fix the exchange rate, the value of the ringgit. And when we fix it, currency traders cannot buy or sell it at their price. And because of that, business was better managed because the value of the currency in their budget does not depreciate over time.
Now, talking about the economy, I have read you and heard you quite a few times talking about a sort of monopoly by certain groups in the world over economy. Do you think it's still the case in the world?
Yes, it is still there. Our ringgit now is still being devalued. We don't know whether it is due to currency traders or because our economy at the moment admittedly is not doing well. And when the economy is not doing well, it leads to depreciation of the ringgit. But I would think that the solution would be to fix the exchange rate. That can be done. But the present government of Malaysia is against fixing the exchange rate.
And I think you had one of your first problems with the current Prime Minister at the height of the Asian crisis, isn't it?
Yes, yes. At that time, he was following the instruction or the advice of the IMF. And I told him that you follow the advice of the IMF, the country would lose money and we wouldn't have enough money to pay the salary of government employees even. So from that point onwards, I took over the management of the finances of the country.
And it worked. I think it worked.
It worked. Even the IMF and the World Bank later on said that we did the right thing.
Right. Dr. Mahathir, I have met Dr. Anwar Ibrahim as well. While I was in Malaysia, I met other politicians like his daughter and Dr. Saifuddin Ibrahim. For us in this part of the world, when we look at Malaysia, we don't look at it so much from the personal conflict that's there, the political conflict. So many people in this part of the world don't actually know a lot about the problems that exist between you. So many people have favorable views of Dr. Anwar. Many have favorable, the same people have favorable views of yourself and the others. What's the real problem between you?
When you look at a thing from a distance, you don't see the blemishes, the bad things about what you are seeing. But when you get nearer, you can see that the face that looks so beautiful from a distance actually is not so beautiful. We live in this country. We are feeling the effect of his administration. The currency is being devalued. Nothing is done. The economy is not doing well. Nothing is done. Politically, we are reverting to authoritarian rule. For example, we are told you cannot talk about this, you cannot talk about that. If you talk, the police will come and ask you, why do you say that? Why do you say this? So there is no free speech even. So we are feeling it. People in Europe or in Middle East do not feel it. So they see what is beautiful, but they do not see what is ugly.
Well, hopefully we continue to see the beautiful, and you also will have more beautiful sides of what's going on there. We take a lot of pride in the Malaysian experience. We are very happy that there is a Muslim country in Southeast Asia doing so well in the past and right now. So only pray and hope is that you all will succeed together, as difficult as it is for politicians. So you have a lot of criticism of democracy, and I have to admit, I came across the most serious criticism of democracy in your writings. For example, you talked about the threats of the dictatorship of a minority. About 30 years ago, you talked about that sometimes a minority can actually become a dictator in your country. And it's taking place right now in many parts of the West. You see extremist minorities taking over the governments and directing policy. Someone would ask the question, what's the best form of governance according to Dr. Mahathir if democracy is not quite good?
I still think democracy is the best form of government. It's certainly better than authoritarian rule, absolute monarchies or dictatorship. Democracy allows us to change government if we want to. But once people are elected, they can abuse their power and prevent the people from exercising their rights. For example, they can use money to bribe people to support them. So it's not the people choosing the person to rule, but it is the money that he pays to them. Then there is a threat. Currently, for example, in Malaysia, we are not allowed to speak about this, we are not allowed to speak about that. There is supposed to be freedom of speech in a democracy, but we are not allowed to speak about something that the government doesn't like to hear. So there is really no full democracy. Democracy should allow for people to be free to talk, to discuss, to debate, to criticize the government. But that is limited now because the government doesn't like to hear.
Dr. Mahathir, our electricity just went out. So
I can hear you.
all right. So sorry for that, Dr. Mahathir. You had to see a part of the life here. So you said that democracy is still the best form of government. And that's a belief that you have held for a long time. And there's the Islamic Party of Malaysia, PAS, which shares the belief by so many other people in the Muslim world that Islamic Sharia, or a form of caliphate, will be the form of, or in Islamic State, let's say, will be the best form of government. What do you think about that?
Yes, I think Islam provides you guidance on how to govern a country. It is all there in the Quran, except that we don't follow. We do things that are actually not allowed by our religion. For example, oppression of the people is not something advocated by Islam. Killing people, jailing people, and oppressing people, all these things are against the teachings of Islam. So if we stick to the teachings of Islam, we will have a good government. Well, for example, the Quran stresses that when you judge with justice. 43 verses says, when you judge with justice. Many of us don't. That is why we are having problem. We don't follow the teachings of Islam. We only pray, we only fast, give zakat and perform the Hajj. But the other Fardhu Kifaya, where we have to live a good life, and ad-din, the way of life of Islam, we don't follow.
How did you manage to combine the Malay identity with the Muslim identity? Because I have not seen that in any other non-Arab Muslim country. In so many non-Arab Muslim countries, there is a huge tension between the ethnic identity and the religious identity. And unfortunately, so many secular forces, so many pro-Western forces have used this tension between the two aspects of our identity to cause trouble, be it against Islam or against the nation itself. How did you manage to solve this problem, that every Malay is a Muslim?
In the first place, Islam teaches us to be tolerant. That what we can change, we change. What we cannot change, we have to accept. But when we do something that will only cause the country to become unstable, fighting each other and all that, we avoid that. In Malaysia is a stable country, despite having 40% of its population non-Muslim, but they accept Islam as the national religion. And the Malays define themselves as Muslim. A Malay is a Malay only if he is a Muslim. If he is not a Muslim, he is not a Malay. That is the constitutional definition of a Malay. And we try to live as much as possible in accordance with the teachings of Islam. But sometimes people break away and do things that are not entirely Islamic. But we have to be tolerant about that, because sometimes, for example, some people don't cover their head. I mean, this is a minor sin to be committed, so we accept that. But most people cover their heads according to the teachings of Islam, but not all. Some people don't cover, but we don't take action to beat up people who do not cover their head. That is not Islamic, because there is no force, no compulsion in Islam. You see, we want people to do what Islam teaches of voluntarily, not by force, not by killing people, not by beating people, not by jailing people. That is not the way of Islam. We have to be tolerant and we have to be kind. That is Islamic. But some people are so intolerant that if you don't abide by covering your face, you are beaten to death. But killing a person is a sin. You can't do that. That is why in Malaysia, we see good practice of Islam. For example, we have women as commercial airline pilots. Why not? What's wrong with that? Women in Malaysia become engineers, lawyers, doctors, and all. They are very necessary for the society to be fulfilling the teachings of Islam, fardu kifayah. For example, we have women doctors, a lot of women doctors, but of course they attend not only to the women, but sometimes they have to attend to the men. I mean, it's a profession. It's not about doing something that is wrong. They are trying to, somebody is sick, somebody has an accident. You can't say, well, I know how to cure this man, but I will not cure him because he is a man, I am a woman. No. The important thing is to help somebody who needs help. So there is nothing in Islam that says that, oh, if a man is dying, a woman doctor cannot see him. No. Even if it is a woman patient, if there is only a male doctor, no female doctor, the male doctor will have to attend to the women. I mean, this is something that is taught in Islam, to be concerned about the sufferings of others.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what usul al-fiqh, or the principles of jurisprudence, are for in Islam. There's the principle of ad-darurat tubih al-mahdhurat. When in the times of need, then some of the forbidden things will be allowed. So exactly, that's very understandable. So you argue that Malaysia is also a Malay country, not just any country. Yes, it's multiracial, but basically it's a Malay country where other people have come to and they're accepted. Could you clarify on that?
Yeah, any country can accept people from other countries to settle down in that country and even to become citizens of that country. But those people who come from other countries cannot change the country so as to resemble their own countries. No, that is wrong. They must accept that this is a country that was founded by the Malays. They define this country as a Malay country. The whole world recognizes this as a Malay country. But now what they want to do is to say that it is not a Malay country. It is a multiracial country. Many countries have people of foreign origins living in their midst, but they are not multiracial. They retain their identity as the original country. Around us, we have many countries: Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand. All of them have got foreign people living there. But that does not mean that they are a multiracial country. They are Thailand, they are Philippines, they are Indonesia. But they allow people to live there and become Indonesian, become Filipinos, or become Thais.
Dr. Mahathir, are you afraid that the Malays will one day lose the majority or lose the power in Malaysia?
No. We have been in power for the last 60 years. This country was ruled by majority Malay government, but the non-Malays in Malaysia have prospered. They have become very rich. They have become even billionaires because we don't oppress them. We allow them to do business. We allow them to carry on professing their own religion, their own way of life, but at the same time, we want them to recognize that Malaysia is a Malay country.
So I talked to you, I talked to you from Suleymania. Suleymania is one of the most Kurdish cities in the world. It's 99% Kurdish, and it's in Iraq, of course. About 100 years ago, when the British forces came to Iraq, the Kurdish people actually fought against the British. They didn't want to join the British Empire, and they didn't want to join Iraq as well. And you know very well, because I've seen in some speeches of yours, you talk about the Kurdish issue and the Kurds, so you know about this part of the world as well. What's your take on the Kurdish issue? What do you think about the Kurds, their plight for independence?
Well, we think that they should be a part of the country. They should be given equal rights as the others, because largely they are also Muslim. We cannot treat Muslims badly and as to take action against them. In Malaysia, we have people of different religion, different origins, coming from different countries, but we tolerate them. We allow them to stay here, to practice here, to do business here, to even become prosperous here. We do not object to that. But of course, they cannot change our country. But otherwise, they are treated as citizens with the right to vote, etc. Of course, the mistake was made by the British and the French. At one time, they controlled the whole of that area, but they divided up the area between the French and the British. The British got Iraq and Palestine, whereas the French had Syria and Lebanon. But when we became independent, they were not treated as one country, Syria, but they were given to the different countries, 4 countries. But there was also many areas where the people are Kurdish people. At that time, the British should recognize that the Kurdish people are different people. They should be given their own land, but they did not. So they have become citizens of Iraq, citizens of Iran, and citizens of I think Syria also. They should be accepted as citizens.
Well, thanks for saying that, because many leaders around the world do not even dare to say that simple thing, that Kurdish people, just like any other people in the world, deserve to have their own national identity and sovereignty. Thank you for that. You mentioned Palestine, and I can say that with a very clear conscience that you have been one of the most vocal voices against the Israeli occupation in the world. And I have a very simple rule for moral compass. Are you for the Palestinian rights? Are you against Israel or not? And you have proved time and after time and after time that you are against the occupation in Palestine. First of all, how did you decide to do this in a world where you have to be silent on Israel?
Yeah. 1,000 years ago, the Jews may have been living in Palestine 1,000 years ago. But 1,000 years ago, or even a few hundred years ago, people who lose their land to other people, we recognize the other people. We recognize Palestine as Palestine, where the population is made up of 90% Arabs and only 5% Jews. So they should stay that way. But the Jews wanted to have their own land. And they created Israel out of Palestinian land. That is wrong. That is wrong. We take Turkey, for example. Turkey at one time was a part of Greece. Turkey, the land Turkey was a part of Greece. But Greece cannot say now, oh, 1,000 years ago, Turkey belonged to us. Now give back to us. It cannot. We have accepted that Turkey belongs to the Turks. So we have to accept that Palestine belongs to the Palestinian people, who are mostly Arabs and only a few Jews. But they try to seize Palestinian land to create the state of Israel. Why? Oh, because 1,000 years ago they were there. That was 1,000 years ago, not now. So they should accept that Palestine is the land of Palestine, of the Palestinian, who are maybe many mostly Arabs and only 5% Jews. It should be like that. There will be no war. There will be no fighting. But the Jews during that time, they practiced terrorism against the British and against Arabs, terrorism. And finally, the United Nations gave land belonging to the Palestinians, gave land to the Jews. That is wrong. They have to consult the people there. Do you agree? Because in Malaysia, the state of Sabah and Sarawak was apart from Malaysia. But we ask them, we have a commission to ask the people, do you agree to becoming a part of Malaysia? And they agree. They have a right to tell, but the Palestinians were not asked whether you agree to have Israel inside Palestine. So it was very undemocratic, very unfair, very unjust. That is why we are against the formation of Israel. But if the Arabs agree to give Israel a piece of their land, that is their decision. But this is not an Arab decision. And on the top of that, they expel the Arabs from their own land, seize their own houses, their own farms and all that without compensation. And then they oppress the Arabs, arresting thousands of Arabs in jail without trial. All these things are against the law. So how can we support Israel if they behave like that?
Dr. Mahathir, some people accuse you of being an anti-Semite just for simply stating these facts. Are you an anti-Semite, really?
Yeah, if you want to call me anti-Semitic, okay. But I'm not anti-Semitic because the Arab people are also Semitic people.
Yes, yes.
I'm only anti-Zionist because Zionists are the Jews who plan to seize Palestinian land and make it their country.
Very few people, very few people can say what you say, let alone leaders. I'm talking about normal people. A university lecturer, a doctor, an academician on Twitter cannot say what you say, and you continue to say the same exact thing for the last 50 years. Where do you take this courage from? Where do you get this courage from?
No, I am brought up to believe in justice, in fairness, in being doing only what is right. So what has been done is wrong. I believe I have a right to criticize. If America does something wrong, I criticize. Even if China does something wrong, I criticize. But Russia also. But if they do something wrong, but if they do something right, why should I criticize them? For example, America wants Saudi to be the enemy of Iran for hundreds of years, to be the enemy of Iran. And America supports Saudi to go against Iran. But the Chinese went to Iran, the Chinese leader went to Iran and then went to Saudi. Now they have become, they have diplomatic relation. So who is for war? Is it the American or is it the Chinese? The Chinese have worked towards peace, but the American is working towards war. Even in the Far East, they try to stir up trouble between Taiwan and China. So why? Why should you do that? The Chinese could have invaded Taiwan long ago, but the Chinese didn't. Why do you stir up tension there? So I have to say what I observe is true. If I'm wrong, tell me where I'm wrong.
You're absolutely right for so many of the things you said. What do you think about the future of the international relations in the world? Do you think that China is taking over, as some people say?
Well, China is going to be a very strong nation. Today it is number 2 in the world. It has a population of 1.7 billion, more than Europe and America together. And they are very clever people, very hardworking people, very skillful people. And obviously they are going to progress. And the United States may not be the number 1 country for long. China may become the number 1 country. But what does it do, China? Does it want to conquer the world? I don't think so. They have to trade with the world. We trade with them. You know, we knew the Chinese. They were with us for 2,000 years. They never conquered us. But the Portuguese came from Europe in 1509. 2 years later, they came with a fleet and conquered Malacca, conquered part of Malaysia. So who are we going to be afraid of? China or Europe? Europe conquered us. China never did.
Dr. Mahathir, you were born a few years after the First World War. You saw and witnessed the Second World War. Do you think that you are going to see the Third World War in your lifetime?
There may be, because of the, you see, the Russia and the Western Europe were partners in the Second World War. They were fighting against Germany. Germany was defeated. Immediately, the Western powers formed NATO to go against Russia. After Germany was defeated as their enemy, they find a new enemy, and that is their own partner, Russia. And they did everything possible to threaten Russia. They formed NATO. It forced Russia to form the Warsaw Pact. But eventually, Russia broke up and gave independence to all their socialist republics. But what did the NATO do? They should also break up. But instead of that, they tried to get the former Russian state to join NATO and threaten Russia, coming nearer and nearer to Russia. That is wrong, because they are always wanting to find an enemy.
So what do you think about the future of this war between Russia and Ukraine, or NATO in generally?
Yeah, you see them, especially America, inventing new weapons to kill people. They spend billions of dollars inventing more weapons to kill people. And they want to find out whether they can kill people. They are the ones who invented the atom bomb. And they kill hundreds of thousands of Japanese. But they are still working on more weapons. Now they want to fight wars in outer space. They are wanting to fight wars, and they are always preparing for wars. They say you must prepare for war if you want peace. It's not true. When you prepare for war, you get war. And they force small countries to fight so that they can sell their weapons. This is very bad. You see, because they are not working for peace. I am against war. War is about killing people, and killing people is a crime. So I want to say that war is a crime, but of course they don't agree.
I really appreciate your answers. I'm not talking to you only as a politician or as a former prime minister. You represent a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom to me. And by the way, I published your first interview on your birthday, and there's a lot of great reactions from the young people here. They are very happy to, some of them have not known you before, some of them have known you before. All of them are very happy to hear you and to hear your wisdom. So one of the questions is, generally, are you optimistic about the future of the world or pessimistic?
I'm not very optimistic, because this culture of conflicts and war is still with us. And wars are getting worse and worse, because weapons now can kill more people, destroy whole countries than before. Before we had bows and arrows. That is okay, you kill one or two people. But now you can wipe out a whole country. That is what is happening to Ukraine. A whole country is destroyed for no reason. You see? Yes, the Russian says Ukraine should not join NATO. What is wrong with that? I don't see anything. Why should Ukraine join NATO? Unless, of course, it is to threaten Russia. And Russia objected to that. So they had to take action before they were attacked.
In the case of a world war, do you think that Muslims should join the war or stay neutral? They take the side of China and Russia or take the side of NATO? What's your take?
We need a third party to tell this warring nation to stop their war. You know, at one time before we had the non-aligned movement, but now that is not active anymore. Before, the non-aligned movement was set up because of the Cold War, and they wanted to stop this fight. But now it is not active. We need the Muslim countries to work for peace. Islam is about peace. We have to work for peace, and we have to have peace in the Muslim world.
Do you think Muslim unity is possible?
Well, it's very difficult, I must say. It's very difficult. But I think Islam preaches unity, that all Muslims are brothers. We don't regard Muslims as brothers. Malaysia regard all Muslims as brothers. Although we have nothing to do with Bosnia, we have nothing to do with Palestine. We are not hurt by them, but we feel that there must be justice, that we have to help Muslim achieve safety, security in this world.
And you were really appreciated for that on your last visit to Bosnia. They remembered your support during those years. In the West right now, there is a huge woke movement, LGBTQ, RSTU, you know, the different alphabetic numbers that they have, supporting homosexuality, transsexuality, and forms like this. Do you think that the Muslim world is in the danger of getting such disease?
The Muslim world must reject all this. This thing is even against Christianity. But we Muslim must reject, because God made us in pairs, men and women, so we can procreate, we can have children. But they don't care about children. They just want to enjoy life, and they do all kinds of things like men marrying men, women marrying women. That is wrong. That is what nature was created for. So we Muslim must remember that there are verses in the Quran which says that God does not approve of this men and men having sexual relation. And I think Muslims must fight against LGBT throughout the world.
Dr. Mahathir, the last question. You know, every Muslim is ready in a way for death. We believe in life after death, in akhirah, in concepts like this. What's your thought on death, on preparing for meeting Allah, or in general, what's your wasiyah for the Muslim world, for the ummah?
That is a belief. As a Muslim, I believe in the afterlife, and we have to do things in this life to deserve good treatment in the afterlife. But we must also do things for this life. In this life, we have also to be well developed. We have to have a very good developed country, justice, fair play, equality, and all that, but not breaching the teachings of Islam. Equality doesn't mean that because a man should have the same pay as a woman, therefore a man should marry men and women should marry women. No, that is wrong. That is against nature. God did not make us like that. God made us in pairs. Even animals are made in pairs, and we have to live as God make us in that way.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mahathir. I really, really, really appreciate your time and your wisdom. Any last words that you want to express or say?
Yeah, the last word I would like to say is that go back to the original teachings of Islam, and that is the Quran. If we go to we believe in the teachings of so and so and so and so because they are leaders and all that, then we will go wrong. Go back to the Quran, because the Quran teaches us the way of life of the Muslim, which is very good for us. We will be successful people if we do that.
Dr. Mahathir, thanks so much. Inshallah, God will give you many more health years and you will continue to serve the Malays, Malaysia, and the Muslim Ummah. Thank you again.
Inshallah.